In a year of black swans, an embattled world has to stand up to the unpredictability of President-elect Donald Trump and the vulnerability of his policy options. His trademarks of anti-globalization, anti-elites, anti-establishment,
we must replace the present policy of globalism,
and provocative remarks on Taiwan are a wake-up call.
坚持一个中国原则是发展中美关系的政治基础。
Will politicians in emerging markets choose to forgive him in the coming Trump era? Can an ideologically divided Latin America present a shared society to resonate with President Xi's inclusive Belt and Road Initiative on co-prosperity?
打造互利共赢的命运共同体。
And can Russia and China join hands through President Putin's Euro-Asian Economic Union to rebalance the U.S. pivot to Asia? Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. In Latin American countries, the shared economy and shared society encourage emerging markets to actively participate in globalization. However, Donald Trump's restricted trade and anti-immigrant ideas could present challenges to the region. Can the shared society thrive in emerging markets in the context of anti-globalization? What will relations between the U.S. and Latin America look like in the era of President Trump? And how can China contribute effectively to the growth of international emerging markets? To discuss these issues and more, I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by former President of Peru, Alejandro Toledo, former Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan, Zhumat Otobayev, and the Dean of Emerging Markets Research Institute at Beijing Normal University, Professor Hu Biliang. Welcome to Dialogue, gentlemen. While President-elect Donald Trump in the United States talks smart about how to reject immigrants and rejecting TPP, as an example, is a hallmark of his campaign slogan, which is anti-globalization. At the same time, in your book, The Shared Society, you discuss at great length the virtues and advantages of having an inclusive society. Do you see contrasts, very sharp contrasts between the notion of a president-elect Donald and what you advocate?
We are different. Origins will look different, but we have to coincide and live in this world that belongs to all of us.
You mean the version of President-elect Donald Trump's war along the border with Mexico won't come to any avail? It will be a futile attempt to build a physical war that separates Mexico from other parts of NAFTA?
I can assure you that that will never happen.
At the same time, we have established the Shanghai Cooperation Organization back in the year 2001, exactly the same year he got elected as president of Peru. Now, this SCO is meant to be an integral part of the Euro-Asian Economic Union, or what we call the Belt and Road Initiative. What do you think of the momentum of SCO and as the Belt and Road Initiative in contrast against the anti-globalization trend that President-elect Donald Trump represents?
What indeed President-elect claimed in his campaign is that he doesn't like integration. He doesn't like NAFTA, he doesn't like other institutions, but at the same time we had a summit of Shanghai Cooperation Organization where two very big countries were accepted as full members, India and Pakistan, with other countries to follow. Thus, it's created huge Eurasian security cooperation organization. And what is peculiar and what is remarkable for us, that just in the middle of this huge conglomerate, Central Asia just will be in the center. So we will be going back to the old Silk Road glory times when we earned our wealth and our prosperity, education, other scientific achievements through being transit. And we are looking forward for the transit region for major Eurasian continent.
Mr. Donald Trump seems to, he wants to put America first ahead of globalization, TPP, and NAFTA. But all developing countries seem to be enjoying the dividends of globalization. Do you think there are, the decentrifugal forces at loggerheads, and how can China help reconcile different forces? How can China position itself in the era of either deglobalization, reglobalization, or anti-globalization?
I think, if you look at the fact, China is a beneficiary, but many beneficiaries for the globalization, for liberalization, for the open economy or shared economy, global shared economy. If you look at the fact in China before the reform, China was very poor. Only a little bit more than 30 years, China got a lot of wealth. If you know the history, not only China, history, globalization brought a lot of wealth for what countries? America is a result of the globalization. If there's no globalization, American will not be existing, right? To benefit a lot of international trade with other countries, with UK, with European countries before. So I think China is very clear. We go further, based on my understanding, we go further, continue to benefit from this process and push forward for the process.
There's no doubt China stand for benefits of globalization because we are one of the biggest beneficiaries of the existing world economic order. However, despite the serious disputes between President-elect Donald Trump and outgoing President Barack Obama, there's one thing that they share. That is writing rules by Americans, not by China. And President Obama says if there's one country that writes the rules for the world trade, it should be the United States of America, not China. What do you think of this this political overtone for this sole superpower in the wake of the Cold War?
My friend, the United States is a very strong, powerful country. It's very respectful as a nation.
You mean China or the United States?
United States. China is a country that is the second economy of the world. 1.3 billion people, a large market, the main investor in Latin America, the largest trade partner of all 600 million Latin Americans.
Because we are the biggest trading power in the world.
You are. And you are in a process of changing also.
Then are we a threat?
No, to the contrary. That is the whole thing about shared society. It is our responsibility, not only with today's generation, but with the future generations, to construct a more shared society. Leads an institute that's called Emerging Market Institute. But that's Africa, some countries of Asia, and Latin America.
Professor Hu, are you ready to write rules for the emerging markets? And do you think you're going to put yourself on loggerheads with
So if directly answers your question, I think we're working together. Nobody writes the rules. We're discussing together.
Sorry?
We make the rules together. Nobody writes the rules for the others. Maybe in short period of time, it's true, but not forever. If you look at history, U.S., the rise of U.S. is only the phenomenon, for one century. Before 17 centuries. So
President Obama says the United States stands ready to lead the world for another century, another 100 years. I mean, where does the confidence come from? Soft power, economic muscles, military power, military-industrial complex, human rights, where does it come from?
No. I think that the United States, fortunately, has a strong democratic institutions that will not allow President Donald Trump to do what he said he was going to do. Secondly, now hold on. No country has the right to write the rules of the world. not for the biggest country like China, not for the tiny country of Sudan. I will not let anyone to write the rules for my country in Peru or Latin America. I rebel myself. Mr. Trump has forgot something. That the United States is the result of a massive different migrants that came in different times. And with all due respect, his family comes from Scotland. He's also the result of migrants. And when they came to the United States, to America, there were some indigenous people who belonged to that. Now they are in reservations that only allow them to play casino and drink alcohol. Now hold on. I come from an indigenous country, and with all due respect, I'm the first indigenous president who was democratically elected in 500 years in Latin America. And I'm not gonna let anyone to displace my roots, my sense of pertinence. Now, the world now has opened up. It belongs to all of us, and we need to take care of it, not only for us, but the responsibilities to reshape the life profile of our children and the children of our children. But we have to do it together. This is not the time to break connectivity. This is not the time to withdraw or to be protectionist. This is the time to work together, to dialogue. Confrontation, watch it. One of the worst enemies that a society or a leader could have is a big ego. And the world needs more sharing.
In Central Asia, among all others, this region is characterized with the cultural diversity and different levels of economic development. And at the same time, President Toledo talks about shared society. To what degree do you think we can find something cohesive to put the countries and different economies together?
Let me make a statement that those who are living in so-called landlocked countries without access to the sea feel necessity of cooperation even deeper than others. It's old saying that if you want to please the world when you have access to sea, you just jump into the boat. In landlocked countries, you have to talk to your neighbor. If you wanted to go or you want to make a deal, you have to ask permission or whatever agreement with the neighbor. So we're really much more thirsty for cooperation than maybe others. Why in landlocked countries only 5% of human population is living? Because it's very difficult to make business, to make trade, to be richer, to be prosperous. Because of cost, for example, of transportation in landlocked countries 3 times as more expensive as via sea. So Central Asia must be central through being efficient as transit.
Professor Hu, do you think along with the economic expansion of China comes the growing sense of international responsibility? At the same time, we face serious social division as to whether we should go international with more of our precious foreign exchange reserve. Because we, after all, have 70 to 80 million people living under the poverty line. They are wrestling with the basic idea of bread and butter. So it's politically incorrect to boast of, and to talk smart about international responsibility for some of the netizens. And they use social media to voice their complaints about the poor social security program, not equal access to education, the free, nothing about, to say nothing of free access to Medicare. What do you think of the conflict here?
I think any country then needs, they needs to take responsibilities from both sides. The first to take responsibility for the people. If you look at internally, right? to improve their livelihoods, to improve their education, healthcare, all these kind of things, social security, as I just mentioned that. But now is the open age. China now with the the growth of China goes global. It's a mega trend. So China also need to take responsibilities globally. So I mean, China take a responsibility for from both sides. China now work two necks. They have been working very hard from two directions. They are not contradiction with each other, but they supporting from each other. We can do one side better, and which is supported from the other hand, and also if we can better to invest to help other countries to grow faster, we also can benefit from the investment, more investment opportunities, trade opportunities, and we can do the inside job. We can improve our internal affairs even faster or better.
There's no question about the momentum of outbound capital flight on the back of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is an ambitious blueprint of President Xi Jinping. However, whatever we do, whatever we say, we would be viewed as increasingly assertive, not only in South China Sea, but perhaps in building Confucius Institute to export Chinese culture. So China is viewed as a threat to the rest of the world by some of the people who are skeptical about the global implications of China's global expansion. But you are watching dialogue with former president of Peru, Alexandro Toledo, and the former Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan, Jumat Otobayev, and Dean of Emerging Markets Research Institute at Beijing Normal University, Professor Hu Biliang. We'll come back to address these and other issues. Please stay with us. Welcome back. What do you think of the criticism against China's expansion when we are ready to transform ourselves from a continental power to maritime power? Maritime disputes are likely to occur, and increasingly so, despite our vision about maritime Silk Road.
First of all, let me congratulate on the Prestige Review program. Secondly, let me answer your question directly. This is not the time in the world to compete in a tournament of World Cup soccer. It's the time of putting a team together in the world with players from China, from Africa, from Latin America, from the States, with a sense of vision, inspired about the future. It is not the time to play toys of ego trips of who is the biggest and more powerful. We have the responsibility to leave to our children a world that is livable. And in that team, everyone counts. I'm not afraid about China's size or growing. I'm not afraid about doing trade. We're doing trade with China. As a president, I began a free trade agreement with China in 2001, and it was concretized with my successor. No problem.
Perhaps we are going a little bit too far in addressing geopolitical rivalry between major powers in the age of power politics. So let's come back to examine what you mean by having a shared society in Peru and indeed other neighboring countries in Latin America, because this is the centerpiece of your book, and this is also centerpiece for Emerging Markets Research Institute of the Peking Normal University. What do you mean by having a sustainable prosperity of a shared society?
Shared society means that connectivity has brought us closer together despite our cultural differences that we should respect, despite our origins. But we share the responsibility of prosperity, of reaching sustained and sustainable rates of economic growth, but with the perspective that economic growth is a mean, not an end. The benefits of economic growth we need to share to eliminate exclusion, poverty, inequality, discrimination between men and women, or indigenous, independent of whether you are born, human rights, freedom of the press, has no nationality. And this is not the time to divide. This is the time to have the courage to confront shared challenges, to live a livable world to the future generations. We come from a different cultures, but we share a dream for the future with the eyes open.
But I'm afraid all politics are local. You have to talk to the local electorate about shared society. For those guys who live in underdeveloped society or in underdeveloped areas, it's a bit a luxury to talk about shared society when most of them are still struggling for the basic matter of bread and butter. They are still wrestling with the idea of having the basic decency of education. They don't have actually equal access to education or medical care. So it's therefore more of a political will for you guys who talk with a cigar, wine, whiskey in a club. For these poor guys, the underprivileged, they would ask, hey, come on, give me a break. What do you mean by shared economy?
Mr. John, with all due respect, I do come from extreme poverty. So I don't smoke the big cigars, neither do I condemn those who do. But I'm concerned to share the wealth, the economic growth. I received my economy in Peru minus 3% in 2001. When I concluded in 2006, I left the economy growing at 7.5%. Well, you can Google me and you can find that. But that's not my main accomplishment. I wanted the benefits of that economic growth goes to have potable water, sanitation, infrastructure, and quality of education. Quality of education.
At the same time, do you think having an olive-shaped society, which is characterized with a sizable middle class, would be the basic conditions for having a shared society? When you have the big income discrepancy, when you have the serious poverty-stricken population in underdeveloped areas, most of the countries in the Belt and Road Initiative stretches. So it's therefore a luxury to talk about shared economy. It remains a concern. Don't you think so, Professor Hu?
Shared, society, as the president mentioned, that we need to share the responsibilities. We share, since we share the responsibilities, this is very important, but we need to look at results. More important, we need to share the achievements. If we don't share the achievements, and the poor people, they must be very angry. So this kind of development model or development approach
but I'm afraid
will be not sustainable.
I'm afraid that's a subject matter for those who have cigars in a club in the European Union, talking smart about giving funds and sponsorship to low-lying island countries in the Pacific Ocean, when those guys are wrestling with the painful idea of having climate change, the rise of the sea levels one day, and they're going to become submerged in sea waters, and yet the funds still comes very late, and maybe a luxury for all of the funds to be handed over to the needy.
Maybe all actions started with idea. So what we try to achieve with Emerging Market Institute is that get together people with different cultures, backgrounds, knowledge, education, and to advise what human society should do next, from idea to implementation. I want to underline one important thing. We have to be efficient enough to broadcast our ideas to the decision makers. So we are in China, and we wanted to give policy advice to Chinese government what to do in order to make better equality. One of the main challenges of the modern world is inequality. But we don't want only to talk. This is difference. We don't want only to write the books. From these books, we start actions. And China, as an economy number one within short, should realize and be prepared to take responsibility to make more fair society, more shared society. All countries around China also will be doing it. One Belt, One Road is not tunnels, roads, energy or communication. It's philosophy of share ideas and this idea to bring world to the more fair condition.
But with the impact of Brexit, the rise of Donald Trump, which rejects globalization, and the rise of far-right movement in continental Europe, the politicians who represent the right-wing political forces would reject immigration, citing the issue of terrorism as an excuse to lay groundwork for demonizing the Schengen Agreement. In this age of skeptical scrutiny, I mean, how can you foresee a collective future of a shared society?
My friend, I decided to write this book, The Shared Society,
to give a shock therapy?
More concentrated in Latin America, but looking at the world. Mm-hmm. And looking at 34 years from now. I want to share three things. The challenges that the world confronts today, the world, not only Peru and Latin America, though, two. We need to share the actions. That's why we have an emerging market forum worldwide. And in China, is more focalized under the leadership of Professor Hu, Emerging Market Institute. And three, we need to share what I have, I'm strong in, with what they are strong in. We can sell minerals to China, gold, silver, copper, oil, fish meal. But I don't want to be a slave of the fluctuations of the prices of the international market of our commodities. So I want to diversify. I would want to be independent from exogenous factors that I do not control, which are the changes of the prices of the commodities.
Thank you very much, President Toledo. That's basically a question of live and let live by the end of the day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.